Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest iteration of the web series, The Nature of Predators. If you're new to this series, there is a playlist listed in the description down below. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 91, Memory Transcription Subject, Slenek, Vendel Space Corps. Date, Standardized Human Time, December 3rd, 2136. The bombs began falling within minutes. From our vantage point, the explosions were mere smoky blips on the horizon. Orange pops illuminated the night like wildfire. But I knew that they were destructive strikes against Silice's supercontinent. How had the Orcs gotten within orbital range so quickly? Why had the human defenders been unable to slow them down at all? Terror filled my fur, as I guessed the UN was no longer challenging the front flank at all. The streaks in the sky were further out now, judging by their diminished luminance. There was no indication on our radio chatter that we sustained catastrophic losses. I believe in my predators too strongly to accept that their defensive line was wiped out upon arrival. That left me to believe the Terrans chose a strategic retreat. I think the blue helmets above us abandoned us. Marcel's hazel eyes were bulging as he held Vernt against his chest. Burla, do you know the quickest way to the spaceport? The Tillfish general scuttled forward anxiously.
What? And you're not defending the planet at all, so you're just leaving us to die?
General, honestly, I don't think Silice is our concern. The UN wants the best fighting chances. It seems they're taking up a position elsewhere.
There's billions of civilians. Kids.
There were kids on Earth too, Marcel snapped, before drawing a shaky breath. I'm sorry. I know the Tillfish populace had nothing to do with it, but I get us not wanting to lose more human lives. Honestly, my friend's anger made perfect sense. The emotional distress was visible in his eyes. It was unreasonable to expect the human to fight tooth and nail for an enemy, even if they'd done so on the cradle. The difference was that the Gojid Union was stopped before they could deal any damage to the Earth. Even I harbored a grudge against the Tillfish for the heartache their raid caused. General Burla hadn't seen the human cities buried in rubble, and predators burned half alive. She hadn't watched massive soldier drops to their knees, sobbing brokenly. After a vengefulness that surfaced in the following week, I would have pegged the Terrans to glass this planet themselves. It was merciful the cooler heads found reasons to accept their surrender at all.
Please, Marcel, I know, and all of humanity have suffered, but how can you let children die?
Burla pleaded. The human covered Vernt's antenna carefully. Funny, I remember wondering aloud how the Federation could slaughter us, saying those exact words to Slenek, just like you are implying about us. It was my call, Burla. I would save as many lives as I could.
Then save some of us, however many you can.
I am. I'm saving you and Vernt. Marcel placed a Tillfish child atop his helmet, adding another adornment to his cranium. Vernt had been quiet ever since the bombs started falling. I doubted he understood the gravity of the situation. But at least the kid recognized our demeanor's shift. The young insectoid's eyes lit up briefly from his new perch.
So high, you as tall as a mountain,
Vernt giggled. My best friend quickened his steps. We're about to be much higher, because Burla is taking us to the spaceport, right? And we're going to evacuate. The Tillfish general cleared a throat.
Yes, sir. Follow me.
Burla scuttled through the nearby alley, and my human followed. I hustled after him, though my legs weren't as durable as theirs. Marcel glanced back at me briefly, and I gave him the most adorable head tilt I could muster. His response was an exasperated sigh, before barking to pick up the pace. If my groveling couldn't melt his frigid act, our relationship was in dire straits. The human had never shut me out since the beginning of our exchange program. Now, out of the blue, we weren't on speaking terms. It was unfair to push me away, especially when our lives were in imminent peril. Hell, it was almost manipulative. All I could do was advise Burla to take Vernt to a medical professional, like any reasonable person. To make her hopeless situation worse, a bone-chilling bark reverberated behind me. I knew without looking behind me the guttural cry belonged to Dino. The slobbery dog had a habit of waiting outside my tent and seeking me out during its downtime. The humans allowed it to roam the base wherever it pleased, without a care for who it bothered.
Yeah, of course.
Its handler couldn't have collected it for the evacuation. It had to be breathing down my haunches during the raid. Burla screamed,
Predator, run!
No, it's okay. Dino, sit, Marcel bellowed. The filthy mutt whined and lowered its rump to the ground. Its sable tail thrashed the pavement. while its brown eyes studied me. The pink tongue lolling out of its mouth was covered with saliva flecks. It was a relief the dog obeyed. With how it had been barreling down on our position, the demon couldn't sprint faster than a human while sharing their tiredness.
Dogs are persistent predators too, aren't they? I realized. That's why the humans favor them and once use them for hunting.
Slanek, the dog's with you. The human's low voice made it clear that there was no room for argument, unless you wanted to be difficult. I drew a shuddering breath.
I'm not the one being difficult. Dino seems nicer than you right now.
The last statement wasn't heartfelt, but I wouldn't give Marcel the satisfaction of seeing my discomfort. The dog bounded up along my side, and I tried not to focus on this monstrous presence. Burla seemed wary of the beast, though Vern was testing out the word dog with giddiness. The longer I observed the Tillfish child, the more I thought something wasn't right with his wiring. Marcel had his service weapon drawn and eyed Tillfish civilians we passed warily. The human was aware of our present vulnerability to rebel attack. The city's populace resented us more after we gassed and defended them at their initial protest. My friend was the one who ordered the curfew, so they might have a particular disdain for him. Burla steered us past factories and storage units, keeping our own eyes peeled. The Tillfish General was avoiding crowded areas where possible. I hoped that wasn't at the expense of time. Oxel landing parties crested above us and skirted the occasional anti-air fire. Humans weren't putting much pressure on them, with their focus on evacuation. Oxel units are arriving in major cities. If your location hasn't been bombed yet, that means hostiles inbound, a gravelly voice said over the radio. All evacuation shuttles need to be off the ground in 10 minutes. Marcel's eyes darted around. Crap. How are we going to make it?
With time to spare, Burla answered. Cut through the incubator facility here, and it'll just take a few minutes. Saves a lot of time not to go around.
Good. I'm sure glad you're here. The Tillfish General didn't return the compliment. She ducked into a circular building, which took up an entire block with its daunting size. Vern leaning over Marcel's forehead and started playing with his helmet straps. The Terran scolded the passenger, ordering the little one to remain still. The kid fell limp with a sad look. Tillfish geneticists protested intrusion, though they quickly retreated when Marcel's gun pivoted. I knew the space was sacred to an egg-laying species. It was where they raised their offspring to hatching day. Teams of medical professionals were dedicated to maintaining ideal conditions and saving any younglings that hatched early. The Harkin and the Crocattle were protective of such institutions too. It was rare any egg-laying species trusted a mammalian species to wander their fragile safe houses. All it took was one clueless sapient messing with an egg to burst its bubble.
I can only imagine how these Tillfish feel about the Predator soldier taking a shortcut through here, not to mention Dino mucking up the place. We strode past the observation room, partitioned off down the hallway. Marcel studied the X-rays monitoring each egg's health. His facial features softened. He took a second to peer at the orange pod through the incubator glass. Labels were affixed to every specimen, identifying the parents. The human slowly digested that those globs were someone's kids. Burla cleared her throat. There's no time to snack. Let's go.
You think I want to eat them? Marcel hissed. I was just curious. Never seen anything like this.
Sorry, your expression turned very weird.
I was imagining Vern as an egg. I'm wondering how many you, lay at once.
20 or 30. Your eyes went very wide. Is that, normal?
I'm just surprised. That is a lot. Where's Vert's siblings?
Thrown away, the child reared. I'm the chosen one.
Disbelief flashed in Marcel's hazel eyes after absorbing Vern's decree. The Tillfish General flicked her antennae, and the human took the hint to move along. We turned into a lengthy walkway, chasing off more staffers. My lungs ached from keeping up with the Terran. Diurno's nightmarish presence wasn't helping me breathe either. Burla sighed.
Maybe I shouldn't have told Vern the honest answer.
You throw away your eggs? Marcel asked, in a voice that crept an octave higher. I don't know how to respond to that.
It's not like that. Please, let me explain. These days, most Tillfish decide how many children they want to have. 20 is a lot, like you said. And all at once. It's a tall order.
Yeah, I see why parents wouldn't sign up for that. So you decided you wanted one kid, Burla?
Burnt is the lucky one, like you said. You see, we used to hold an average of about 5 eggs kept. Ever since first contact, more people wanted 1 or 2, like the other races.
Ha! It must have looked like other species had it easy compared to you.
Indeed. With technology nowadays, we can pick which eggs are most viable early on. Doctors run tests to avoid defects, and they can find positive traits too. Werndt was predisposed to intelligence, so I chose him.
Burla led us past the spacious laboratory and explained its features quickly. Microscopes and testing machines lined the room, along with bins of tillfish eggs. This gave Marcel a visual of how large a litter was. Honestly, each jar looked like one of those gumball machines on Earth. I doubted humans could handle that many offspring. I couldn't imagine juggling 20 newborns at once. The Vendel devoted ample time to rearing a single child. It wouldn't surprise me if the tillfish had to abandon their weakest young in the past. How else would the herd survive without sacrifices? There was a lot of mouths to feed prior to the post-scarcity era. It made it somewhat understandable why they became omnivores.
Exit out the rear door up ahead and across the street. We're almost made it to the spaceport,
Burla clicked. Werndt bounced on the Terran's helmet.
Awesome! To space with humor!
The tour had been welcome distraction from the Arxel raid transpiring outdoors. Inside the stone building, I couldn't see the explosions peppering the skyline. But it was time to endure the final chaos and face our grisly reality once more. Marcel slung forward with caution, leading the way to the exit. The paranoid predator still hadn't lowered his gun. Dino's ears perked up and the beast projected a fearsome bark. The sudden noise, thunderous and throaty, nearly made me tip from fright. The dog's hackle fur rose, and it began outright growling. I knew it all along. The vile predator was going to attack at random. I could feel my insides twisting and my legs turning into paste. What is it, boy? Marcel paused at the door and turned his head towards the canine. You hear something?
It's ravenous. It's gone feral,
I screamed. My best friend bit his lip with displeasure, holding back some snide remark. Dino cemented its insanity further, bolting out a series of harsh barks. Marcel inched several steps back and held up a hand for us to wait. Because of the dog's hunger fit, my human was wasting precious time.
I'm so sick of this non-sapient thing. It's dangerous, and I'm tired of the Terrans treating it like a pack member.
A dangerous thought crept into my mind, and I unclipped my sidearm. This was the perfect chance to put Dino down. It wouldn't win me any favor with Marcel, but I was already out of his good graces. I coaxed my weapon up and lined the sight on the animal. Its outburst gave me a suitable reason to be rid of it at last. Marcel was oblivious to my extermination plot. His gaze was following Dino's stare. Shadowy shapes moved up to the door, and I jerked my gun away from the dog. Its growling was drowned out by the sound of shattering glass. Gunfire tore through the door's opaque frame and launched into the room. The human sprinted back towards our position, holding up burn. Orcs or hostiles, Marcel roared, terrifying Burla with his pitch. Is there another exit? The grey shouldered through the broken frame and took aim at anything that moved. This was the logical first step on the raid. With an easy stash of eggs here, thousands of them, unlike the ones helping in New York, these demons were the ones to wreak havoc. The fact that Marcel felt the need to attack hostiles after Arxel, it was an insult to the Vendel's suffering. I forced my claw onto the trigger. My bullet sailed in the direction of the greys, but it didn't connect with the monsters. Marcel's hand was on my shoulder in an instant, the human pushing me to the ground, and slid behind a chair. It warmed my petrified heart to know that he'd still protect me in a battle. Dino charged at the monstrosities and sank his fangs into the Arxel thigh. The dog brought down the grey with ease, like it was wrangling a prey creature. One Dominion soldier attempted to rescue its colleague. However, the hasty shot missed the dog and went through the downed Arxel's stomach instead. The ugly much charge had bought us time to regroup. If it hadn't detected the Arxel raiders, we would have been gunned down the second we stepped outside. Those vicious growls might have been a warning for us, just like Marcel assumed. I felt a tinge of regret for almost shooting it, though I shoved the emotion down. Burla! Marcel waved a hand in front of the general's face. Is there another exit?
The female tillfish swallowed. There's an emergency exit to our left.
Good! We move on 3. The human whistled to the dog before popping shots off at the Arxel to cover its retreat. The animal came running at Marcel's summons and returned itself to my side. Dino was fresh out of the combat, sniffling my paw a bit too eagerly with its predatory snout. I ignored the beast, but I tried to suppress my innate resentment. The greys dusted themselves off from the dog attack and peppered our cover with bullets. The foam upholstery wasn't built to survive an assault. It was riddled with holes in seconds. This wasn't an actual shelter that could ward off the Arxel savages.
Marcel gave the signal to move, and I indulged my instinct to run with gratitude. The human dispensed a few hasty shots, giving us time to move. He lingered behind, all the while drawing the Oxal's attention. Out of my peripheral vision, I saw one monster buckle to the floor. My legs bolted for the side corridor, while my tail found itself drooping again. Burla and I pressed up against the wall, with Dino skipping at our heels. It brought immeasurable relief to be huddled at a more secure location. However, the sensation was fleeting when I remembered the human. My eyes searched for him and found his lanky form still crouched behind the chair. Marcel had taken out another grey, but their raiding party could afford a few losses. The human was surrounded and would be mowed down in the instant he stood up. His hands cupped burnt against his chest, gentle affection in his gaze. An unimaginable sense of loss gripped my heart when I realized the primate was pinned down. The thought of anything hurting Marcel makes me weak to the knees. He's someone I love being around, and who I trust above all else. My human deserves to make it out of here, I muttered to myself. My shaking paws became still as the motivation spurred a return to my training. I poked my head out from behind the wall and shouted for the Oxal's attention. Marcel widened his eyes, gesturing at his throat. There was no chance I'd let such a wonderful soul sacrifice himself for my sake. I did my best imitation of an injured squeal, fully earning the Grey's attention. The human stuffed Vernt into his helmet and bolted towards my position, barely aiming. I lobbed several shots at the Oxal. My newfound bravery fizzled out as dozens of gelatinous pupils trained on me. The enemy guns swiveled away from their fellow predator and landed on the weak Vendel. Pain lanced through my shoulder, like the muscles were torn from my arm. I fell backwards as white-hot agony overwhelmed my senses. The Oxal nailed me with a bullet. Did that mean I was dying? My panic intensified when the sharp teeth pressed against my scruff. Dino dragged me behind the wall and planted a slobbery lick on my mouth. I screeched in disgust. Away! Gross! Marcel slid on the floor. Slanek, no. Are you okay? Answer me. Please go. You just have to get your shuttle. The vegetarian tapped a wristband, which offered a readout of Terran numbers. It was illegible to my eyes, but I sensed that the information wasn't a positive sight. A sad smile crossed his scarred face, and he breathed a half-hearted sigh. He deferred my firearm to Burla before kneeling beside me. The countdown is at 0. Our evacuation ships have already left. Marcel hoisted me to my feet and draped my good arm around his neck. We're stuck here. Utter defeat crushed my spirit, realizing that we were stranded on a forsaken world. So this was how the unlucky soldiers felt on the cradle, fighting a hopeless fight. There was no escape from Sidus, and no humans coming back for us. With Oxal swarming every settlement, our deaths were all but guaranteed. End of chapter.
I would quickly like to thank our Tier 5 patrons, Dragzoon W.R.E, Quantum Wednesday, Ambrose Cattell, Lord Ashrakal, Bushmaster 177, Casper Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, and Arcadian. Thank you very much.